Have you ever wondered why you have internal conflicts? Why are there so many voices inside of you? In this episode, we are going to talk about the 7 avatars of your psyche through the lens of astrology. Hi, this is Nisa with Nisa Mystery School, and you're watching Cosmic Little Lessons, your adventure every Wednesday to bridge the gap between you and the oracular guidance. In this episode, we are going to continue on as we're going to teach you how to read your own chart. And now, today, we're going to kick off the series of what we call Know Your Chart. And here, we are going to start reading into your chart, and I would like to teach you to read the alphabets of the astrology. Now, in this episode, we are going to focus on the 7 avatars of your psyche and just really briefly. I know if you've been watching my Cosmic Little Lessons, and I hope you have, here it is a little recap from episode number 1 through number 7. Now here, what you see on your screen, we have the trilogy of the masculine led by the sun. We also have Jupiter as well as Mars. And then we also have the trilogy of the feminine, and here led by the moon, we also have the Saturn as well as Venus. And of course, the 7th factor. Here we have Mercury, which is here we have a planet that is not a masculine nor feminine, nor it's both. Hermes, which is in Greek mythology, here talks and associated with the symbol of Mercury is the winged messenger of the god, and its main purpose is to be the translator of duality, and this is why Mercury is such a fascinating character. So now here, I hope you have your chart with you, and we are going to talk about the glyph of the sun and the moon. Here in your chart, you will find this on my cursor, the circular symbol of the sun. And here, what I would like for you to notice is the number where the sun is landing. That means the sun is in the second house. And also the sun in the second house in the sign of this glyph. And of course, we're going to unravel this in future episode, but just so you know, this glyph, it is the glyph of Virgo. So now we're going to move on to the other glyph, which is the half circle. Here we find the moon. The moon here is in the 3rd house. And also here, it falls on the glyph of Libra, which makes this person, the person has the sun in Virgo, but moon in the sign of Libra. Now we're going to continue on with the next pair of the masculine and feminine. If you notice here, we have the 2 glyphs that repeat back from the sun and the moon. So here, Mars, you have the axis of the time and space right above the symbol of the sun. And now you have Venus, which is exact opposite, which is here, you have the sun rising above the axis of time and space. And here in principality, Mars is part of you that is instigate action, while Venus, it is the principle of attraction. And this is also derived from the sun and the moon. Here we have the sun at the symbol of the divine masculine, and we have the moon here as the divine feminine. Now, skipping forward, back to your chart. Now you will find actually here Venus first, which is the circle right above the axis of time and space there. Second house in the glyph of Virgo. So second house, Venus in Virgo. Now, here, Mars, in a lot of modern symbolism, it also has this glyph, which is a circle with an arrow. But personally, I would like to actually unravel my material in this glyph because it's kind of obvious in its duality, and I don't know. Anyway, it's just something that is synchronistic for me. So here, the next pair that we're going to have is Jupiter and Saturn. Now, here again, back to the wisdom of the glyph. Previously, in the sign of Mars and Venus, you have the axis of time and space with the sun above and below. Now here, with Jupiter and Saturn, we are talking about manifestation. And here, Jupiter also, as you see here, includes the sign of the moon that rises above the axis of time and space. And of course, this talks about the principle of expansion within ourselves when things are rising above time and space, if you can imagine. Now here we have Saturn, which is the principle of contraction. Saturn always talks about necessity, and that's not necessarily a fun thing to do. It talks about more the shadowy part of life, the shadowy necessary things that needs to happen. So here, as you see, we have Jupiter, which is the moon rising above the axis time and space, and Saturn. It is as though the moon, it is pressed down with this time and space. It always reminds me of literally the cross that the moon has to bear. So that's Saturn for you. Now, we've talked about in Cosmic Little Lessons this associations of the 7 wanderers in our natal chart in our 7 days of the week, as well as the 7 forces within ourself. The duality of the masculine and the feminine in its trinity, and it with its translator of the both of them, Mercury. So here, back to your chart, I hope you have found your sun, your moon, and then of course we talked about Venus as well as Mars, and then the other duality, the iron fist and the velvet glove, Jupiter as well as Saturn. And of course, next up, we are going to talk about Mercury. Here, we have the principle of connection. And of course, Mercury, it's always both neutral or neither, because the function is almost an agent of the trinity of the masculine and the feminine that we talked about earlier. So here, again, if we're looking at the glyph of Mercury, we have the basis of time and space at the very base of the glyph, followed by the sun, which is in the very center part of Mercury. And then as though the antenna flipped over, the moon here, it is also part of Mercury. So I hope you learned the glyph, the alphabet of astrology today, as well as finding the 7 traditional planets, the 7 avatars in your psyche, as we're going to unravel forward in the future episode. Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate your share and like and spreading the gospel with your friends.